On this week's episode, I'm interviewing Brian Hersh. Brian, who's the CEO of the Arts and Culture Alliance of Sarasota County. Been there 3 years, got quite an impressive arts background, and now he's evolving into quite a leader. And as you listen to this podcast, you're going to pull out some very strong leadership nuggets. So I hope you will enjoy this interview. Brian, a lot of people know you, but share with the audience a little bit about yourself, your history, and how you became CEO of the Arts Alliance.
Thanks, Michael. It's awesome to be here. Love our banter, and we'll promise to deliver for all the folks listening. So I always start with this. I'm a musician first, and I will always remember that. I'm a musician first. I play drums. I don't play as often. People are like, where are you gigging? No, I'm not. You can't find me playing live right now. But I would tell you, I carry everything I've learned from a musician and I apply that forward into every single aspect that I do. So as I had a jazz gig in college. That was my spending money college gig, which I loved, a weekly jazz gig. And there's a lot of things you learn in that. And you learn how to be responsive and really how to listen. You listen to everyone around you. And your job as a drummer is to make everyone around you sound better. So I know that as a drummer, I'm putting down a groove that everyone can pick up and really feel. And I do my best to make everyone else around me do better, sound better, be better. And so I take those influences as that drummer and apply it forward. Now, as a drummer, like, where am I going to go after college? I moved to New York City, right? I wanted to be in New York City, and I was so lucky. I played with singer-songwriters, all kinds of things all over New York, and it was great, and I loved it. But what really transformed my life, and this is true, I don't know if you know this, but I was a volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters in New York City. And I worked with my little Corey, and we're still in touch. When I started mentoring and volunteering with Corey, I realized, wait a minute. If I can do this for one kid, how can I do this for a lot more? And I started getting involved in arts education, and I was lucky to land at the world's largest performing arts center, Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, not too shabby, where I spent my mid-20s. And I'm telling you, I saw some of the world's most amazing arts experiences, and it was absolutely incredible. Those experiences stay with me. Who I got to rub elbows with, just sit next to and have lunch. I remember one day being at the Metropolitan Opera cafeteria and listening to Pavarotti sing his last rehearsal. Just these kinds of things were every day. Now, arts and culture means so much to me, and New York City is a huge city, right? It's big. I wanted to be in a place where I could make an impact and still had a strong cultural presence. So that's Sarasota, Florida. Wanted to raise a family in a place like this, an arts and cultural community. Moved here, was lucky to plug into the arts community, worked at Oslo Rep for a number of years as their education director. And then I was at the school district for about 10 years running the Any Given Child initiative, which was part of the Kennedy Center. Wonderful program. And then I always knew in my mind, I actually consulted with what was then the Arts Council when I moved to Sarasota. And I realized, I'm a big picture guy, if you haven't heard me talk a lot. And, this is big picture stuff, working and advocating for the sector. So I knew that ultimately at some point I wanted to find my way back to the Arts and Cultural Alliance. And when this post opened up, so I tell people as a musician, I never had a job I thought I would have, except this one. This was definitely the job that I wanted, and wanted to really be in this spot to be able to make an impact for our broader cultural community in Sarasota.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. You are certainly making a difference. And I will point out to those of you who are watching on YouTube, over his left shoulder are a set of drumsticks. He carries with him everywhere he goes. It's like his security blanket, I'm sure. I know how you percussionists are. So I like seeing that. I appreciate the prop. So you're 3 years, almost 3 years into your tenure, actually very close to 3 years. You're the advocate. You're the CEO. In practical terms, what does that mean? What does the job entail for an organization like the Arts and Culture Alliance?
Yeah. So, I had a friend tell me something the other day, and I realized it's this. We're essentially the chief brand manager, the chief cultural ambassador for arts and culture in Sarasota. So I also say this: arts issues are community issues are arts issues. So if there's anyone thinking of something arts related, I want them to call the Alliance. I want them to call us if they just want to know who to connect with, or they have questions, we are the go-to spot. We're a connector and a convener, is what I would tell people. So we're part of that, the cultivating force of the ecosystem here in Sarasota. So ultimately, the brand manager for arts and culture in Sarasota, and so we are the go-to if you have any questions. And I'll tell you what that looks like in actual form. So, for example, arts issues are community issues are arts issues. One of those issues is affordable housing in Sarasota, right? So I made it, really, I tried to bring that up in my sort of entry level of meetings as I rolled into this position. And what comes out of that is when people go, so for example, if affordable housing comes to the table and people say, maybe there should be something about arts and culture and affordable housing. And then we're brought into that conversation on the table. That happened to be One Stop Housing and the Bransick Foundation. Thank you to them. And now there's Artscape. And so that's our job. And when we put those sort of things out there and those feelers out there, and people think, what about arts and culture? Who should we talk to? The Alliance. And that's what that looks like.
Well, the community certainly embraced you in this role, and everybody knows Brian Hersh in this role. We knew you before, but certainly in this role. Hey, did you know that we have a YouTube channel with all these podcasts and video? You get to see what's going on, what we look like when we're doing these podcasts. So if you'd like to go take a look, it's youtube.com/@thecorley company. We'll see you there. I'm curious, you're still CEO of a member-driven organization. You have a board of directors. So it's a little bit different than a nonprofit that is not a member organization. How does that how do you structure the board? How do you interact with the board? And how do you use the board to accomplish the objectives you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, thank you. So, our board has a strong representation from our arts leaders of organizations. So, we'll be clear about that. But what I'd say over time, we've actually balanced this out. This is as we just elected our slate recently, we're about 50-50 now. So, our board members are half from just the community at large, if you will, and now half represent our member organizations. And here's the deal, I think everyone understands that the sector strengthens and improves, and we can do that just as the rising tide. So I think keeping that big picture perspective and making sure that everyone is part of that. So, for example, for those folks who are obviously leading member organizations, what's going to benefit all of us as cultural institutions? And then at the same time, let's say you're coming from the business sector. We know arts is a business. So, what strengthens your business? Knowing how arts feeds in that. So, just knowing those dynamics and those relationships and realizing that all of it really goes together. And Sarasota, rises as part of our cultural identity. So I think we can hang our hat on that, but not rest our laurels on it. We want to keep advancing it and really moving forward. And that's how our board can really work together. But we are of service to our members. We're of service to the community. And part of that is giving people the information to let people know how much arts is part of everyone's lives who lives in Sarasota County, sometimes whether they know it or not. And it truly is.
Oh, it really is. And you've defined that very well. And so, looking at your board, so now you're 50-50, which is a radical transformation because I know at one point it was 100% member occupied board, if you will, which creates some opportunities and challenges. And we all know that. So, how do you work with the board to keep the interest of the Arts Alliance number one when they also have organizations they're running? How's that balance work?
Yeah, always trying to get the mix right.
Yeah.
It's patiently. I try to remind people of a few things. I try to really distill things into chunks. So like that drummer me, like, how do we really make some things really easy and accessible? If there's two things that anyone can remember, what does arts and culture really contribute to this community? It's quality of life and it's economic impact. So and then from there, really starting to break those things out. Okay, so what are the programs that the Alliance does to really strengthen those aspects and giving our board members command of those pieces? But if nothing else, those two beacons, if you will, quality of life and economic impact, and then trying to give people information of that. And at the same time, I would give every board member saying, well, I love it. One of our newer board members said, so you want to make sure that we're connecting with our spheres of influence. Yes, absolutely. So what is it within your sphere of influence? Is it the newsletter that you have as an arts organization that you can send things out? Great, let's do that. Or is it, you've got some donors who you feel like are really interested in advocacy. What's that look like? Okay, let's have coffee. Let's strengthen that conversation. So it's really kind of saying, what are your talents and focus areas and strength? Let's go with that. One of my sayings I haven't said in a while is play with the folks who want to play. And I think that that's really the play with people's strengths. Don't worry about all the different deficits. Now, I do, of course, like to make sure that we've got a diverse skill set on our board. So, for example, we brought on an attorney for the first time a couple years ago. Great. That was a deficit that we had. We really want to be able to do those sorts of things. Great. So those are sort of those rounded aspects. But again, the board should want to know, and they do, that they are part of this ecosystem. They are stewards and champions of it as well. And we want to try to give them as much information as possible that can help them be great advocates and champions for arts and culture as a sector.
Well, you've done a really good job framing that and managing the board. I'm going to use that in quotes, and people have heard me talk about this because the CEO is not supposed to manage the board, but let's also face reality. So 3 years ago, Brian comes in, and you've got a board, and it's got to evolve. All boards have to evolve. Um, Nothing wrong or bad with that. So you're 3 years in, you've gotten now 50-50. Is there, I'm fascinated. Did you consciously say, we're going to evolve this board? I've got to get to 50-50 because there are such benefits. I'm going to play these people's strengths. Just, I'm curious about your strategy as you came in.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think what's beautiful and what was great is I think the board was ready and recognizing that as well. So it wasn't like, I think they realized like, hey, we've got great arts experience and leadership, and they are the best. They are the best at what they do. They're fantastic. They lead organizations amazingly well. So they give great artistic insight about governing in a nonprofit arts and cultural space. Wonderful. How do we get a little bit more? And so I think really starting to bring in those other aspects and lenses. And I think that that's given us some of that growing power of being, known in the community, picking those folks who are working with some of their spheres of influence. So, for example, just coming onto this board, we've got a few other folks coming from the more southern parts of our county. Great. Like those are really opportunities that we need to connect with because Sarasota County can really be vast geographically. And we know that there's a lot of arts and culture that happens at the northern end. But guess what? There's people who live throughout the county. They maybe come and travel back and forth among other parts. But there's people everywhere who benefit from arts and culture, and we want to plug in and get to those spheres. So I think the board was ready for that. And then to your point, part of what I wanted to really be able to do is, okay, how do we really re-engage and have those conversations? We try to have a board retreat every year. But we were just talking about this as a team and a staff today of going, well, let's make it intentional. We don't want to do it just to do it. Like, what do we want to gain from that? But a lot of that is positioning the board and helping give them the things to look forward to throughout the year. I always believe in on ramps. How do we find people to come on? Both our board members, but also having our board members be able to bring people on to the messaging of the Arts and Cultural Alliance. So easily identifying some of the wins that they might be able to have throughout that course of the year and continue to engage. I try to make it easy. I try to really be distilled and simplify, but people are really busy. Does everyone read every email? One of the things, what we did in a recent board meeting, we had a little like school. There's an educator part of me. We had a little like what we call bell work. So Michael, maybe it's been a little while before you've been in school, but before that bell rang, when like school began and it was time, your teacher may have given you an assignment to do at your desk. And in our last board meeting, I essentially said, hey, if you're not following us on social media already, make sure you're following us on one of these various platforms, because guess what? That is one of the best ways you can see the work that we're doing. You can see it on our LinkedIn and our Facebook and our Instagram. Are you following these things? And it was great because then I could all see them liking it, and then they all started sharing different pieces and promoting stuff. And I was like, wow, why didn't we do that sooner? It's okay, So it was a great. I don't even know how we came up with. Probably one of my brilliant colleagues came up with that idea, and then we implemented it, and you can start to see that engagement and that traction.
Oh, I love that. And it is spoon feeding, and not in a derogatory way. These people are very busy. And so if you got a few minutes during a board meeting, say, get out your phones, like this, follow this, whatever. Because that may be the only time they will think about it that day because they're very busy.
Yeah, that's exactly what we realized is going like, instead of me sending an email for saying
Yeah.
like, "Hey, go do this," and I know because I've been on boards and I've done that too, and sometimes I'm like, I tell people if I show up somewhere and they've got I'm like, tell me what to do." I take direction well. And Michael, for the record, this is what I learned from my orchestra director in college. You know, he told me this, and I remember I use this all the time: lead, follow, or get out of the way. And you got to know as a leader when to do each of those things. And sometimes you truly, as a leader, are absolutely leading. Sometimes, like, oh, sometimes we just need to listen and like, all right, yeah, like tell me what you need. And I also then tell my staff, listen, don't wait for me. Like I'm out of your way. Like don't wait for me to hold something up. Let me get out of your way as well. So I think figuring out those roles as a leader of an institution, when you can do those, and that really will help keep engagement and keep progress.
Sure. And you've done a very good job building trust with the board to be able to make these changes, this evolution, hire people. How did you go about building trust with your board members?
Consistency. So I think it's showing up. It's first of all, like I had heard, I go to every single one of our board members. I go to at least one program of theirs every single year. I'm really, really conscious of that. Um, I don't want to say how many different programs I've probably gone to from October till now. It's a lot. It's a lot, and that shows, I think, trust within not only the people who are our members, who are our board members, but our members overall. I really try to be out and about and get. I want to feel as if we truly are the resource, voice, and advocate. We've got to know what's out there to really truly be a brand ambassador, if you will. Then I want to know what the work is that's happening in our community, and I can tell you. So like, I'm in a fortunate position of like partnering with different folks, and so I might work with our friends at Visit Sarasota, and I might talk to their domestic PR company and their international PR company, and they're going to ask me what's going on in Sarasota. And I've got to be able to say it, and I've got to be able to say it with authenticity and understanding and true experience. So I go out and experience the work. I'm very curious. I think that's something that's really important. And just like everything, try to make things relational. Building trust and relationships. I love going out and about and seeing the people who are at these performances. I'm a moderate extrovert, not overly so because I need a little recharge time after going to these things, but I love talking. Like, honestly, some of my favorite things to do are experience art and culture and then talking about the experience with people. So I just love that aspect, but I can do it with authenticity and sincerity if I'm out and about checking out all of the different organizations and what they are producing and presenting, because that's what they do. And if I can't just read that in an email, I've got to experience it, and then I can talk, I can't tell you how many people I convinced to go see a certain production here or there just because I saw it. And I'm not honestly promoting it one way or another. I'm just saying what I went to, and it was, XYZ. And they're like, that sounds great. I should go. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. And we've done our job. It's good.
And the CEO's job is to be visible with the stakeholders. And boy, certainly you do that. I saw you at so many events this year, and I only went to a percentage, a small percentage of the ones you did. But you understand that role as CEO, and I'm sure there were many times you didn't want to go to something. You wanted to go get in bed after a rough day, but you went out because it was a necessary part of the job. I mean, I assume that's by design. You've got to get out there.
I love it. So, yes, I absolutely know I have to get out there. But honestly, I'll talk to my mom on a drive home sometimes, and, I'll tell her what I'm coming to. And she's like, did you have to go to that? I'm like, have to, like, like, what's that mean? Like, I don't have to be anywhere. But like, if I want to be good at what I do, then absolutely yes. And like, honestly, I want to. I want to see what our peers and colleagues are doing. I think it's unbelievably invigorating, inspiring. It's interesting. So I sincerely love the work. Now, it's funny that you talk about being visible. I really have this like, not that I'm going to bust out poetry, but Walt Whitman would say, I am large, I am multitudes, but he contradicts himself, right? So we have something that's contradictory. You don't know this, or maybe you do. I don't love wearing a name tag. And the reason why is like, there's a Chinese proverb that's the best leader is an unknown leader. And so like if I'm out and about, like I don't need to tell everybody who I am. And I know that this is like that's a really, really hard thing. But ultimately people are gonna figure it out because like our work is progressing. And yeah, sometimes it is because I'm there. But I don't need the spotlight. Otherwise I'd be on the stage, right? But being present isn't just for me, but I know that it's the reception that we get when we go to performances, our team, it's really heartwarming. I love, it's really nice to be received so well. But I think people just what it really ultimately means is thank you for advancing arts and culture in our community. And I would thank them in return. They're doing the same thing. So it's a mutual respect and admiration. So yeah, we are there to witness what they are creating for this community. And then we want to amplify it. And so it's really as simple as that. And I think if there's one word, and well, maybe there's more than one, but we are very intentional as a team. I think we curate everything we do. We're very intentional because we're lean and mean. There's only a few of us. So we've got to be very intentional with everything we do. And yes, I plan out my days and weeks very meticulously, and craft those. It's a lot of fun. That's why I love seeing you out and about, Michael. I love and maybe do I give you some recommendations and picks every now and then? I might.
Yes, you do. You certainly
Okay.
do, and I appreciate that being somebody who did not grow up with the arts. So I'm always looking for some recommendations, and you always are spot on. So let me get back to governance. Couple
Mm.
questions on governance. So I'm assuming you found a rhythm with your board. Just how curious, how often do y'all meet? How often do
Yeah.
you interact with your chair? Do you have committees? How have you helped with your board chairs, plural,
Mhm.
structure the governance of the organization?
Love this. Thank you. So, Stephen Hyatt is our current board president. He and I talk every single Friday morning, every Friday. And I love it. And then Julie Leach, who was our president before that, we spoke every Friday afternoon. And I think that has been so, first of all, they have just been such kind and great leaders and mentors to me. I'm so appreciative of their care and candor and their value in advancing the sector and how the alliance does that. And I think, as Stephen and I have talked weekly, he's like, this has been great for me to really get better command of the work that we do as the alliance, but also what's happening within the sector because we can exchange ideas and have conversations. And that's been really helpful. I would love and would benefit from like, okay, how do I translate that to our whole board, right? What's that connectivity look like? We do meet quarterly, which I think is really nice. And this year with Steven, so if there's 4 board meetings that year, 2 are in person, 2 are in Zoom because we're a large county. And then we have a few different things in between. We have, our retreat, we have our annual meeting and a summit. So some other things. Our committees, we do have committees. I think a goal next year is like to plug those in with really great continuity and regularity. Like we'll get there. That was something we really wanted to be able to do. We have them, we meet, and we'll get there. But that's, we meet with consistency on some of the big heavies, like our finance and non-gov, if you will. And those are great. Those are really great. Those do help inform all of the work that we do. And I think that'll get better. But we also try to make sure because our board members, like many, if they're high powered and high function, high value individuals, their time is precious. It's a precious commodity. So we don't have so many different, we don't have monthly board meetings. Time matters. And by the way, it's about a 90-minute board meeting. There's an executive session at the end of every single one for good measure and good practice. Great. Nothing wrong. Just, for them to check in. Wonderful. And, I love a nice, tight, curated, meeting. So everything having purpose, like that bell work that we did at the last one, trying to, some mission highlights, and I think as we roll forward, I think we'll make them even more streamlined. I'm looking forward to that. I enjoy that.
And what I want to note to the audience, this didn't happen overnight. You're 3 years into this and still continuing. I love you smiling. We're going to do the work on that next year. You can't do everything at once. And once you have that frame of mind that, okay, this is a 3 to 5 year trajectory, hopefully it gives people some pause and relaxation, that you just can't do it all at once.
Yeah, I am an ambitious person with high standards, but I also you'll hear me every now and then say good enough for jazz, and I don't mean it as a knock on jazz,
Yeah.
but like, sometimes it's like, no, we didn't hit every note, and you didn't have to, like, but the feeling was good, so like, did we have a good feeling out of this year? Were we productive? Did it, did we? Yeah, did it sound good? I think we had a good sounding year. So I think those are really important things, and I'm a pretty calm person overall, and I think that's really important too. I'm calm and positive, and I think that just that helps just a steady ship, if you will. I think that those are really good. And no, we can't do it all. And to our board's credit, they completely recognize that. I'm so pleased. They're unbelievably supportive. Just a year ago, we hired our first director of advancement. That's Odie Monde. She's amazing. Then Angelica Hull is our director of grants and advocacy. That's 3 full-time people. We have a slew of different contractors, but advancement was brand new for us. And like, that's going to take some time. But I got to say, even with our friends, at the Giving Challenge, for example, like we had such an incredible year this year. We had almost 100 more donors this year than we did in our previous time. That's great. I mean, that's fantastic. I think we're going to hit, a number of our fundraising goals, and like, whew, not all of them, but a number of them. Like, and it's like, those are the marks where we hit and we go, okay, we did it there. We're meeting some individuals, some of our business partnerships, those are a little harder. Okay, what do we do about that? Or what do we need to adjust that? But what you said a little bit earlier is, I don't let I don't let perfection be the enemy, by any means. But I also, as maybe someone who is futuristic and ideation and always looking forward, I know that everything can always be better. So like no matter, and like that's part of like the musician mentality. Like that's what practice is for. There's a real creative process of like we can always be better. There's always room for growth. There's always room for change. Nothing is sacred that like we're gonna like one of my least favorite like if it's not broke, don't fix it. That kind of thing. That is like toxic to me. Like, it's like we're always going to take a look. That doesn't mean it needs to be broken down all the time, but I bet you there's some refinement that can happen. And you know what? That's what we also did with our friends at Sarasota County government too, when they asked us a lot of things as we manage a contract with them, and we manage a program with them, the Tourism Development Cultural Arts Grants Program. So for all of our friends and family who come and stay in Sarasota, and they are at an Airbnb or a hotel, there's different buckets it goes into. Arts and culture is one. We help with that process, but believe me, we told the county, yes, we think this process can get better as well. And Angelica has stewarded that brilliantly. And I think we've built trust within the county as well. So we're really, really pleased with that diligent and steady work.
Oh, and your leadership principles have shined through this conversation. And so, last question: what's next for the Arts Alliance and for Brian? So you've been there 3 years. Forecast out 1, 3, 5 years. What do you hope is accomplished?
Yeah, thank you for that. So there's a few different things. One, Artscape is going to be amazing. When we break ground for the affordable housing for Artscape, there's a few things that are going to happen there. That's 75 units for employees of arts organizations and artists in this community. That's going to be amazing. We'll also move our offices there, and we're going to have a gallery and exhibition space as well, right? So we're really, really excited about that. And then there's two more things. First of all, I just really want to make sure we are bringing more brand awareness to Sarasota County as an absolute significant cultural destination. This is a place where, and a lot of people, move here for it. There's a lot of people that also visit here for it. We want that to be even stronger, to get more market share, if you will, to get more traction, because I promise you, even our best arts organizations here feel like hidden gems at times. And there's a double-edged sword of that. We like this notion of like being off the beaten path because, right, we're not a huge city and we punch way, way, way above our weight for that. So we want to be like, how do we polish that gem to make it shine enough, but like still keep it like special enough? We want to continue to get market share. And the last thing, just me bias, is like I think you can sense that we're growing as an organization too. I want to be an organization where like everybody wants to be a part of, right? I want to be a spot where, if where people come and find me before we've even posted a job and go like, I want to work at the Arts and Culture Alliance, or I want to be a board member of the Arts and Culture Alliance. How can I help advance arts and culture in Sarasota? That's the space that I want to be able to continue to get to. I think we're on track. I think if you ask anyone who's affiliated with us, board members to our team, and I call them our ensemble because, in performing arts, there's a conductor and while I only took one semester of conducting, guys, and that was one of the hardest exams I ever took. By the way, that's for a whole other podcast. But it's all of the voices and the instruments and everyone working together that truly makes the music. They're the highlight, they're the strength, and that's our ecosystem here. It's all of our different organizations who can be highlighted that they are building this ensemble as well as the people making it happen. So that's what our arts and culture ecosystem is. It's truly a collaborative and ensemble effort. I want to continue to amplify that as well.
Oh boy, and that was a mouthful, and you said a lot there. I'm very excited. You are the ultimate advocate for arts and culture in our community, Brian. You're also the CEO of the Arts and Culture Alliance of Sarasota County. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your vision and also a little bit about governance and your leadership. Much appreciated, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, it's time for Recapping with Reed. And what's so funny is Reed and Brian actually co-host another podcast. So they've known each other for quite some time and worked together. It was fun to have Brian on this side of the other side of the podcast, I'm sure, for you. But share with the group, what were your nuggets from Brian?
Yeah, I mean, Brian had a ton of great little takeaway nuggets. I specifically liked his bell work at a recent board meeting. They're all sitting around talking before the meeting actually gets started. Have them, hey, everyone get on your Instagram and give us a follow, or repost our most recent LinkedIn post. Just have people do something, because if you don't ask them to do it right then and there, people are busy. They're going to forget about it. So have some bell work planned for some pre-board meeting work.
Oh, I'd say even during the board meeting, you can have people do that. So number 2.
Good point. And then I also like Brian said that he likes to remind his board members about 2 things. Arts contribute to the quality of life and economic impact of our region. And just if you can boil your mission down and your purpose down to 2 very specific points, make it simple for your board members, it's easy for them to be advocates for your organization.
So they understand their why. And number 3.
Brian talked about building trust with his board members, and because of his organization, he has the opportunity. He tries to go to at least one program from any of his board members' organizations. So find a way that you, as an executive director, can build trust with your board members, whether that's supporting them at events or meeting with them for coffee or lunch. Find a way that you can build trust with them in a different environment than just a board meeting.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Recapping with Reed and his 3 observations from our interview with Brian Hersh. And we will I-501 see you next time.